In action movies, things happen suddenly, then blow over within a scene or two. We watch action flicks to escape reality because reality is usually pretty hard to swallow. If the things we saw going on that screen were actually happening around us, how do you imagine that might impact you? How about the next day, or the next week, or even years later? In reality, traumatic events like explosions, murders, and assaults can happen right in front of us, and it isn't all entertaining for most of us when those kinds of things happen, particularly if we lose something personal in the event. Surviving an attack or an unexpected accident can be severely damaging to our conscious minds over the short and long terms. When this is diagnosed by a mental health professional, they call it post-traumatic stress. If the negative effect lingers on for months or even years, they call it post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD for short. For those of you who know what we do here, please feel free to comment below and give this video a like. For those of you who have just found us, please feel free to look around at our channel. And after you give us a big old thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe so you'll get more of just this kind of content every time we post a new video. So let's get into this topic. Post-traumatic stress is what happens when we are overexcited, overstimulated, and overwhelmed by something that we have been through or witnessed. It could be violence, an accident, or even a completely natural event like a tsunami or a tornado. Whatever it is that triggers the stress, the scar is left on our memories, and those memories can then become traumatic experiences all of their own every time they are recalled from short-term storage to be replayed in our heads. This can create a cycle of stress that is hard to break without outside intervention. There are 4 primary symptoms that define PTSD, as defined by the American Psychiatric Association on their website, psychiatry.org. The first symptom is intrusive thoughts, such as repeated, involuntary memory recalls. These are often called flashbacks and can be so realistic that the person feels like they are actually reliving the traumatic event. You've probably seen this portrayed in movies whenever they deal with PTSD, especially in war movies. That's not the only symptom, however. Another is avoidance of anything that might even be remotely associated with the traumatic event. People may try to avoid talking about a specific place, person, or event, or they may refuse to even acknowledge that the trauma happened at all. This is the downplaying part, where a person might say, "It wasn't that bad," or "I'll be fine." A third symptom that helps to identify PTSD is rapid changes in cognition, the ability to think clearly, or mood. This is worse than avoidance, because a person who is severely affected might not be able to recall all of the details of their trauma. This is often a trigger for anger, depression, or complete denial of the trauma. In extreme cases, this reaction can lead to violent outbursts or, on the opposite end, complete withdrawal. Many people suffering from this symptom turn to alcohol or drugs to ease their confusion, which only complicates their situation. The changes in cognition might lead to a fourth symptom that psychiatric professionals look for, which are alterations to awareness and reactivity. A person might become hyper-aware, constantly watching others and suspecting them of some bad behavior. Being easily startled or unable to rest for extended periods are also signs of this symptom. In children with PTSD, there are other symptoms that might be seen. Clinging to their caregivers, acting out their trauma during play, or constant disturbances in their sleep are fairly indicative. Post-traumatic stress has been studied extensively in childhood cases. 2 specific disorders have been identified that happen to children who have been victims of severe abuse or neglect. One is reactive attachment disorder, where the child is severely withdrawn from their caregivers and other children. They show little emotion, positive or negative, and their reactions are equally blunted. This almost always occurs in children under age 5 and is usually accompanied by speech or developmental delays. The other PTSD form that specifically affects young children is disinhibited social engagement disorder. This involves a child exhibiting overly affectionate or inappropriate behavior towards other children or caregivers. This disorder is particularly dangerous because these children have little or no boundary with complete strangers. The trauma that causes this disorder usually occurs before age 2. In adults, there are 2 other disorders which closely mirror PTSD. One is called acute stress disorder. This is what happens immediately after a traumatic event. The other disorder similar to PTSD is adjustment disorder. With this one, the trauma which caused the reactionary symptoms is often not as severe. Events such as a romantic breakup or failing a test, or chronic pain that affects daily activities can be triggers. Adjustment disorder is typified by restlessness and tenseness, along with the other symptoms. When a person with PTSD turns to drugs and/or alcohol, however, the symptoms can become unmanageable. The lowering of inhibitions that comes with most substances is reflected in a PTSD victim as raised agitation, often accompanied by paranoia. PTSD can also occur in people who have worked with severely traumatized individuals. Sometimes, just knowing the details of others' trauma can be a trauma in and of itself. This happens most often with police officers or social workers who work with victims directly. The treatment methods for PTSD are similar to other severe mental disorders. Psychotherapy is a first-line treatment, requiring multiple sessions with a psychiatric professional to talk about the trauma and how to cope with the symptoms in everyday life. Medication may be used to supplement psychotherapy, but only insofar as it doesn't complicate the treatment plan already in place. Some alternative therapies have also been tried with varying degrees of success. Things like yoga therapy, acupuncture, or animal-assisted therapy might prove useful to supplement an existing treatment plan. Only a physician, like a psychotherapist, can offer these as acceptable alternatives to therapeutic treatment. So, as you can tell, post-traumatic stress is a complicated subject. To break it down to basic terms, when bad things happen, we need to find a way to make it make sense in our heads. Almost every person in the world reacts badly to severe traumatic events, and it's far from an easy thing to fix by yourself. For some, just talking to friends, family, or community leaders might prove enough to overcome the understandable fear and secondary trauma of flashbacks and bad dreams. Talking things out is a time-tested, self-led therapy that has helped millions, maybe billions. For others, a more professional form of therapy is needed. When the symptoms become too much to bear, or they have persisted for over a month since the traumatic event, don't be afraid to talk to somebody. You can start with your trusted inner circle, but if that doesn't help you, then seek the help of a psychiatric professional. There's likely someone near you who can help you find the resources you need to feel better. Like we've discussed in our previous videos, there's no reason to suffer alone. Leave us a comment below with your own experiences. Let us know what you thought of this video, and give us a like and a share if you found some value from this information. As always, if you or someone you know is feeling suicidal, no matter what other things might be affecting you or them, you need to seek help. You can call the National Suicide Prevention Line by dialing 988. You can also text your message, whatever it is, to 988.